favorite topic in the whole wide world to talk about is incontinence. And I didn't talk about it this morning if you were in there. I didn't mention incontinence at all. And so she's like, you didn't talk about this. And I'm like, okay. She said, so you're going to talk about it this afternoon. So why do I think that incontinence is the most important conversation to have about aging, aside from being prepared and getting your ducks in a row? I would say that might be a little more important. And why it's one of my favorite topics to talk about is because nobody's talking about it. People will tell you to get your ducks in a row. They'll tell you to get your wills done, your advanced planning done. People tell you that stuff all the time. So there's a lot of people talking about that. There's not people out there talking about peeing your pants and why it's such a problem. But incontinence is one of the leading causes of health issues in all of our aged community. It is one of the leading causes. It leads to a UTI, which leads to dementia symptoms, which leads to sepsis, which leads to skin breakdown. If we're not taking care of it in a home, we can then have lung issues because we're smelling the ammonias of the urine that's soaking into the furniture. It leads to social isolation, which also leads to dementia. And the list can go on and on and on, all over one single issue that we're all too embarrassed to talk about. And why are we too embarrassed to talk about it? I will probably tell anyone, yes, if I sneeze, I'm either going to cross my legs or wet my pants. It's going to happen. I had 4 children, naturally, and I had a hysterectomy. And what holds the bladder in place but the uterus? And without a uterus, that bladder's in there like a yo-yo on a string, bouncing up and down. And so when you sneeze, squirts. So we've all seen it in a grocery store. We look up when we see the lady that's standing over in the corner going, phew. We're doing it for a reason. But what we're not doing is we're not talking about it. And so when we don't talk about things, we don't protect ourselves. Or we don't protect ourselves properly. So, and this is wild that we're doing this as a full class. I've never done it as a full class. So why are we so ashamed of talking about incontinence? How many people other than me are willing to say, hey, when I sneeze, yeah, I wet myself? 2 hands, foot. This one over here, my legs don't work no more. Yeah. This one over here, 11-pound baby, she sneezes, all of her urine stays in the right spot. She's had a hysterectomy. I don't understand it all. Never will I get that. But the reason why we have, or at least I believe that we have such an issue talking about this topic, is because when you're potty training your children, what do you say to them? Don't. Only babies pee their pants. Big boys don't pee their pants. Big girls don't pee their pants. Babies pee their pants. And we sew that into our children in an effort to train them, right? So then when you're 35 years old and you take off to go on a little jog and you go, I'm a baby. Oh my gosh. And you don't tell your partner, you don't tell your spouse, you don't tell your children. Now, you don't want to admit that you just wet yourself. If you're laughing too hard and it happens, you don't want to tell anybody. It comes with this shame. And because it comes with shame, we're not protecting. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know that we're going to do a whole 30 minutes on just this topic, but it leads to all kinds of other things. So now I'm afraid that I'm going to wet myself. So what am I going to stop doing? I'm going to stop drinking. I'm not going to drink as much. Because if I drink, then I'm going to go to the bathroom more. If I go to the bathroom more, I'm going to leak more. And so all of these things go into play. So now we have dehydration. And what happens when we dehydrate? We get UTIs. Our blood pressure's uncontrolled. Our skin breaks down even more because it's not being hydrated from the inside out. And all of this comes from one little thing. When I sneeze, when I cough, when I do a lot of things, I leak a little bit. So then you get into the expense of incontinent products. So instead of going to the store and buying those incontinent products because we never want anyone to know that. We're mature women. We'll go buy a menstruation pad. We'll get menstrual pads, right? And we'll use those. Well, they're not designed to catch that kind of a flow. So we're not even protecting ourselves correctly. So then we're leaking through. So who wants to go anywhere where their pants are wet? So then we stop going. Get the picture? So my goal in life is to normalize incontinence to the point that you're getting the protection you need or the treatment you need. Now there is a thing, there's a seat if you deal with a functional med doctor, they're called the throne, and they replicate, girlfriends, they replicate 12,000 Kegels in 1 minute. And it's like having a TENS unit on your hoo-ha. It is ridiculous how well it works, and it does strengthen those muscles. Remember, as we age, we lose muscle mass. Even if you're working out, it is a normal part of aging where you're gonna have muscle that's gonna disintegrate, you're gonna lose tone. And so, as a normal part of the aging process, then the working out helps. And so, Dr. Ray Rogers has one at our office, functional med doctor in Tulsa. No, I'm in Tulsa, Wichita. Somewhere, wherever I'm not at. And so I've sat on that thing, and it's a happy day while you're there, and it does work, it does help. So there are functional medicine doctors that have those kind of things. There are medicines that can help with incontinence. For myself, believe it or not, taking collagen. Over the counter from Costco, collagen, and I don't even know the milligrams or whatever. If I'm having an issue, sneezing, coughing, having that quick reactive stress incontinence, all I gotta do, I take 2 a day, every day. If I get sick, I up the number of them. I take like 4 or 5 of them in a day, and it truly did help. I did it for my joints and my ligaments because I have lupus, and what I found out was, lo and behold, this was a wonderful little bonus that I got, just taking collagen, because it does help build that back up. So another thing that happens with incontinence and why we stop drinking is I don't want to get out of my chair. I don't want to get out of my chair because if it bends, it hurts. And so if my knees are going to hurt, my ankles are going to hurt, my hips are going to hurt, my back's going to hurt, everything's going to hurt every time I get up. I'm going to drink less because I don't want to have to get up. And these are the things that, while we don't even think about it, are going on psychologically inside our aged community, where they're making these choices without really making them, if that makes sense. So I put 2 and 2 together. Well, if I made my kids stop drinking liquids at 7 o'clock because they didn't want to pee the bed, then I'm going to stop drinking liquids at 4 o'clock because I'm not going to pee the bed, or I don't want to have to get up 4 or 5 times in the night. And then, while I'm sitting here watching the Game Show Network all day long, I'm not going to drink because every time I have to get up, it's, oh. And then as I'm walking, I'm leaking anyway. Does this make sense? So these are things that you have to take yourself backwards and you have to go, why are we doing those things? Find out why. Dr. Ray says it all the time. Simon Sinek, I think, is the Find the Why guy. He's a motivational speaker, teacher. He's the Find the Why guy. You have to find the why. Why are you doing that? Why is that behavior happening? Showering. How many have had trouble trying to get somebody that's aging to take showers and take baths? Why does hygiene change so much? You know, this is somebody that was taking showers and taking baths every day, all day long. Their hair was clean, they were pristine. We never saw them unkept. And all of a sudden they stopped showering. Why? What's changed? Why are we not showering? Well, let's think about this. How many of you, I said it this morning, woke up this morning and said, I cannot wait to get naked in front of a stranger? And if you did, please don't raise your hand right now. and we're all friends in this room, so there's no strangers, so don't go getting undressed. No, seriously. We think that it should be okay for us to walk in and say, Mom, it's time to take a shower. Come on, let's go back and take a shower. Or Dad, you need to take a shower. I'm going to help you. We think that barrier all of a sudden goes away just because they're older. How many of you want to shower in front of somebody else unless it's a romantic moment? You really don't. It's kind of like pooping in front of somebody. You just don't do it. You know, I pop a squat right here and pee, but if I've got to poop, I'm going to close the door, I'm going to be quiet because I don't want y'all to know that my poop doesn't stink and yours does. And so I'm going to be shy about it, right? But we will take an elderly person and we'll walk them into a bathroom and we'll assist them onto the toilet. We'll do that transfer and then we'll stand there like a gynecologist doing an exam and we'll be like talking about the weather. Well, I can tell you what's happening to the rectum. It's doing this number right here. It's going to hold on to every ounce of demon it has. And it's not going to release because you're not giving me the privacy and the decency and the respect of being a human. And you're not giving me the honor of letting me have my own bodily functions by myself, all in an effort to keep me safe. So, hey, pull the towel off the rack. There's one. You're in a bathroom. There should be a towel somewhere. Lay that puppy across their lap. Number one, you just gave them protection. You gave them warmth, and you gave them a covering for dignity. And then you take that walker and you kind of scoot it back, or that wheelchair or whatever, out of arm's reach. You say, you know what, you're good right here. I want to step out of the room. You do your business. And you step out of the room. There's not a bathroom out there that doesn't have a mirror in it unless it's a gas station, and they don't want you etching your name in the mirror. But in homes, there's mirrors. Stand somewhere you can usually get a view. If you've got to keep an eyeball on them, you can get a little bit of a view. But let people have that respect. Comes to showering, comes to bathing. How do you get somebody that doesn't want to take a bath or a shower to take a bath or a shower? You make it the most comfortable experience you can. So I had a gal call me. Well, we did a one-on-one. So it wasn't a phone call, it was a Zoom one-on-one. And she was talking about her dad. How she couldn't get him to shower. She's the only daughter. There's no sons. She's the caregiver. She's like, he won't do it. It's my dad, I'm the only child, I don't know how to get him. And we, through the conversation and getting to know him, found out that the man loved fishing and loved swimming and loved water. I said, throw the man's swim trunks on him. She goes, huh? I said, put his trunks on him. Get him in the shower, give him a hose, tell him to wash his own pieces and parts. He can take care of that. You'll get a big enough peek when you're helping him dry off to see if there's skin breakdown, because you do need to do that as a caregiver. But you don't have to sit there and watch things dangle while he's showering. It's not in his wheelhouse to allow that. She's like, I'll try that. No joke. Get a message from her a couple weeks later. She's like, my dad is showering every day. He loves this. This has made him it's a game changer. So when we think about how are you going to be comfortable in front of someone else when you're put in those positions, how am I going to be comfortable? Why do I not want to shower right now? Because I'm going to be naked. I'm going to be cold. It's loud in there. I'm vulnerable. And I'm more likely to fall in a shower than walking across the carpeted floor fully dressed. And what happens when I fall? You're going to call that 911, and all those really cute paramedics are going to come rolling in the door, and there I'm going to be in all of my glory. That's exactly what's going on, and we're not putting ourselves in their shoes. We're allowing ourselves to be upset by the fact that they won't comply. So stop, back yourself up a little bit. Why don't you want to shower? Well, let's think about this. How many of you are ADD? I can throw up two hands, I can kick up my legs and arms. Okay, I'm incredibly ADD, and if you can't tell, listen to me talk and see how I bounce around like a ping pong ball. Okay, I'm incredibly ADD. So one of the things that I cannot stand being ADD is a vent fan. Do vent fans bother you? Vent fans in a kitchen or in a bathroom? Oh, holy smokes, I will poop in the dark. I am not having that fan on. I'll turn it on when I leave the room. Remember, my poop doesn't stink, right? So it doesn't matter if I have a vent fan. I don't like them. They irritate me. So we're talking about a generation of people. Do you think these neurodiversities just started with us or with our grandkids? They've been there forever. This is the bootstrap generation. They're the ones that were told, you got to suck it up and you got to pull your bootstraps up and you got to go on. Doesn't matter if it's bothering you. We're the ones that allowed those things to be, okay, this is why I'm doing this. We're the ones that were analytical and trying to figure it out. They're the ones that just had to go through life. So now that vent fan that they know irritates them, so they shower with the lights off or they poop with the lights off like I will do. I actually went through my house and disconnected all the vent fans. I'll deal with mold. I don't care. I'm serious. There's not a vent fan working in the bathrooms. I don't think there's any of them that are. No, I disconnected all of them. No, the half bath. The half bath works. But I disconnected all of them because I can't stand that sound so much that I don't want to shower in the dark. So it was the easier alternative for me, right? So what if I never communicated that and a caregiver came in and they put me in an assisted living, an independent living, and I go into that bathroom and there I am in this shower that's cold. It's loud because we don't have a lot of furniture in there to absorb the sounds. And now that vent fan's running. What's happening to me all at one time? I'm overstimulated, I'm irritated, and I am not going to do this. Okay, that's my tidbit on that. Does it make sense? Last tidbit that I have, because our time will be up, is how many of you have worked in communities or what facilities? Communities. Okay. Or you've worked with an older person that's incontinent. Okay. This happens all the time. You'll see charting where it says refuse change, and great, they have an opportunity to refuse, right? Now, why are we refusing? Think about this, and if you've got staff in your all's community, I know you're in a community, or you've got coworkers or people, think about this for a minute. Night shift caregivers come in a room. They don't want to wake up people to change them, but they have to be changed, right? You're taking care of your loved one at home. You don't necessarily want to wake them up because we were all told you never poke the bear. You just don't wake them up, because if you wake them up, then they might want to eat or they might want to have a conversation, and all you want to do is go back to sleep, okay? But you'll go in a room and you take the covers and you pull them back and you start to grab those undergarment of whatever kind it is and you start to check, and all of a sudden this person's like, no, pulling the blankets up, covering themselves up. No, leave me alone. Ever seen it happen? I've seen it happen plenty of times. Now, why? Put yourself in that person's shoes. Get an 85-year-old woman laying there in the bed at night. She's asleep. You go in the room to change or check. You don't announce yourself. You really don't wake her up out of a full sleep. She's in that half little bit of a sleep. And you reach in to check things out to see if she's wet. And you just took her back to when she was a little girl and was molested. You just took that poor woman back 80 years, back to a situation she had no control over. And the minute she says no, you're ready to say she refused, she's combative. No, she's tortured. And I'm sorry, but we've got to stop just seeing things from our own perspective and through our own eyes, and we have to start seeing it through theirs. So how do we manage those? Miss Smith, I hate to, but I've got to check you. Is it okay? I need to check and see if you're wet. Or I need to go ahead and change you, because guess what? Even if you're not wet, perspiration breaks skin down. So I'm going to go ahead and change you. I say no less than every 3 hours, even if we're not wet, because those briefs hold in moisture and perspiration, and they're warm and they're damp, and yeast grows, and that's a whole other talk that we could do for another day. But all of this is going on, so I need to be changing you. I need to keep you clean. I need to keep the peri area clean. But what I have to do first is respect the humanity of the person that's laying here. What I have to do first is put myself in your shoes, and I have to think, what am I going to do when I'm 85 years old and some young punk kid or my daughter or, God forbid, a son has to come in and check and change me? How am I going to react if I'm in that foggy transition between sleep and reality? How am I going to react, and what am I going to do? And I'm probably going to go to a place that I don't want to go to. I'm probably going to be tormented by something that's going to come up. Does this make sense? And have you ever thought about that in all the years of working with our aged people? Have you ever thought about, hey, how many times when I go to change somebody, am I bringing them back to those bad memories? And it's not just our women, it's our men too. They were also subjected to a whole lot. So when you're working in a community or when you're working with your own loved ones, and don't think that it didn't happen in your family, because it almost certainly did. Statistically, there's not a chance that it didn't happen to somebody. So these are the things that they never talked about, and they're not going to now. So just take time in everything that you do, whether it be, why are you not drinking? Well, because if it bends, it hurts. And if I drink, I've got to get up and I've got to go to the bathroom. If I've got to go to the bathroom, I'm going to leak along the way. Why are you so ashamed of the fact that you're incontinent? Because only babies mess their pants. Why are you refusing every change at night? Because they don't want to be taken to that bad place again. They're not going to tell you with their voice, but they're going to tell you with their actions. And so you have to become very, very skilled in learning those nonverbal communications, those reasons. Now, how do we manage the incontinence and the protection? Talk to them. I remember the first time I sat in my mom's house and she said, "I die, I need you to burn the hamper." That's an odd thing to say, right? I said, "No, I don't want to burn your hamper, Mom. Why? Just, you have to promise me, when I die, you will burn my hamper." And now you would have to know my mom and I are very similar in our communication style. So there was no topics off limits to talk about and no words that never got said. And so I said, "Are you talking about the fact that there's going to be some stains in your underwear? Because I'm bold." And she goes, "You just burned my hamper." And she gritted her teeth. And I said, "Why don't you just protect yourself, Mom?" She goes, "Huh?" And I went back to my room in her house, because I'm the adult flying in, and I got my little incontinent protection product, and I came out and I set it down, and she said, "I have those." And I said, "No, you have panty liners for vaginal discharge." I said, "You do not have incontinent products. They're not going to catch pee." She goes, "Huh." Okay. Next day, Mom's like, "Why didn't you tell me about these before?" Because we never had this conversation before, Mom, but here, you can have the rest that I brought with me. I'll bring more next month when I come. So there is a difference in the products, but there's a shame that's attached to it. So have the conversations, make the tough conversations your everyday life. As far as planning and all that goes, what Sharon was going to cover, I do a whole thing on that as well, which is, if you're not talking about it, you're literally putting a burden off on the people that you're wanting to protect. The reason why we don't talk about it is because I think if I'm not planned for it, it's not going to happen. If I don't plan for my own death, I'm never going to die. Well, guess what? Every one of us in this room right now are dying. We are. It's happening. We're all still living while we're doing it, but we are headed that direction. You do not get out of this world without dying. Belief systems aside from a rapture, I don't know. We don't get to leave here without dying. So we're all headed that direction. So we have to prepare for it. And the last act of love that we can give to our loved ones is to prepare for it. It's how do I take care of you? Well, I make sure that you know how to pay my bills. I make sure that you know what the account number is or the passcode to get into my cell phone so you can call those people. I tie it up in a nice, neat little bow. And I make it easier for you because I love you that much to have my ducks in a row. There you go. I tied it back into your ducks in a row.
Sweet.
Questions, comments, concerns.
You mentioned dementia also. How does it connect to dementia?
Oh, UTIs? Okay, so a UTI is a urinary tract infection, and any infection can cause dementia-type symptoms, okay? So what we see oftentimes is somebody will have a diagnosis of dementia, and then all of a sudden the next day they're hyper confused. They're like in a different level, or maybe they're hallucinating or something. Yesterday, they were status quo, everything was good. In absence of a stroke, which can happen, in absence of a stroke, you must be looking at an infection, and typically it's a UTI. So the urine will be a darker color. I can actually smell UTIs, some people are weird like that. I can smell that, and strep. It's kind of a weird thing. So you'll be able to see, but if that person has changed suddenly, unfortunately, a lot of family members will say, well, the disease is progressing. No, honey, they need an antibiotic. No, give them an antibiotic, flush some water, and let's get rid of the UTI, and then we'll get rid of those hallucinations, and we'll bring back the cognition to at least the place it was, hopefully. Oral infections are also really, really prevalent in our AIDS community because they stop going to the dentist. And those infections also lead to dementia-type symptoms.
Quick question. I know we're at time.
Yeah, it's all right.
What do you?
I'm here for a long time.
What do you recommend? Because some people do go about getting the will, getting the power of attorney, but one of the issues is no one knows where to find it.
Oh,
so
yes.
What would you recommend for?
So that's why I put those two booklets that I have, the spiral bound. So the one which is for when I can no longer, will you please? And that book tells you literally, this is my electric bill, this is the account number, this is how it's paid. Do I pay it by check? Is it paid online? Is it an auto pay? If it's paid online and I do it myself, then here's my login to get to it. This is my trash day. That's a big one. That's a big one. What day does my trash cans have to go to the curb? And guess what? This isn't just for our age people. If something happened to you, you became incapacitated tomorrow, who knows how to pay your bills and keep everything taken care of while you're in a hospital, maybe on a vent for a long recovery, hopefully for that long recovery. And then you come back and the taxes haven't been paid. Guess what? They're not giving you a break. You're gonna have late fees. Your electric's turned off. The gas got shut off, so the house is cold. All of those things have to be communicated. If we're not communicating them, then we're leaving it for someone else to try and find. And that information is hard to gather and hard to get to. Okay, it's all in my computer. Well, what's the passcode to get into your computer? Because you probably have a PIN or a passcode to get into your computer. And where are all the passwords stored for all the utilities that I now have to pay for and take care of? And where's all this money being deposited at? And by the way, were you a veteran? And if you were, are you eligible for aid and attendance? And if you are, then why haven't we filled that out? This list goes on and on and on. And so there are so many things. I say that we have those written down. You can tell people they're in the safe. Well, okay, what's the combination of the safe? Nobody knows. Now we got to get the safe tracker in here just to get to the will. And then we find out. And the power of attorney is great, but guess what happens with power of attorney when you die? It's done. It's gone. It's gone. Oh, well, I didn't know that. Okay, that's why we need to have the conversations about the advanced planning. So then you need an executor of state. You need to have that kind of stuff. Did you know that when someone dies, you have to know their father's mother's maiden name, I think it is, for the death certificate? I believe it goes back an extra generation in some states, where you have to know that information for a death certificate. Who knows that stuff anymore? Families don't live that close together. So that's all in that little booklet as well, is it gives you all of the place for the generational paternal and maternal names for the death certificates. Because when you're in crisis mode, number one, as a family member, I don't want to have to go worry about paying your bills. I want to sit here and hold your hand. I might lose you. Honestly. I got on a plane in California in 2006 believing that my mother would not be breathing when I landed in Kentucky. They kept her alive until I got there. I was there for, I think, 6 weeks in Louisville. She lived 45 minutes away. I didn't want to have to leave and go take care of those things at the farm and make sure that the bills were being paid and all that stuff was being done. I did it, and she wasn't able to communicate for a long time to tell me. She lived through that experience. We kept her another till 2019, but So if she had had that booklet and had all those things written down, I could have literally sat there in a hospital and taken care of it. I could have gone and got one book, not dug through files and files and little sticky notes. We love the sticky notes of, oh, this is the password for the electric bill. Well, that's on a sticky note in the third drawer down in the kitchen next to the pot holders. Those things are happening. So keeping all of that information just concise and put together.
And I can truly speak to that because my aunt died and she didn't tell anyone she was sick. She died. And she left no will, no nothing. She told my mom everything was taken care of, nothing was taken care of. I a year later am still digging through her house trying to find things that need to be taken care of. And it all fell on me because my mom couldn't do it.
Right. It is the last act of love and kindness you will ever do for another human being is to have things prepared for when they lose you. Because when they lose you, they need to have time to grieve. And I don't know how it's handled here. In California, somebody dies, we're like 3 months before we ever think about a memorial. It's kind of crazy. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, you're like, seriously, a couple months down the road, they may be doing a memorial. In Kentucky, my mom passed away on a Wednesday. Her funeral was on Sunday.
It's more like that.
Yeah. And we still do a lot of funerals with caskets and viewings and things like that in Kentucky, where in California, it's, nope, they've already thrown you in the furnace. There's some ashes that get thrown into it. It's totally different culturally across the country and how things are handled. But the last thing that you want as that loved one to have to worry about is finding all the crap that was supposed to be done. And how frustrating, instead of her passing being one where you're able to grieve and remember and love, you're actually frustrated. You're
I
actually,
hate her.
Yeah.
I hate her.
yeah, it
hurt
does.
her existence every day.
It brings up resentment for someone that you've already lost. And then how do you resolve resentment against somebody that's you've already lost? Well, that's another class for a different day. But these are things that you have to do. You just have to be able to be ready. And who needs to have their will done? Who needs to have their paperwork ready? Who needs to have it done?
All of us.
Yeah.
Every single person over the age of 18. Every person 18 years up and older needs to have things ready. And you need to revisit them. Because the quality of life that you're willing to live with when you're 18 years old certainly changes to when you're 70 years old. So I told you all this morning, I spent a year of my life in a wheelchair. And I literally said, before that, if I ever end up in a wheelchair, push me off of a cliff. That was my mindset. I was athletic. I never thought I could live with any kind of limitation physically. I truly didn't, and a lot of people see that. But now that I have and now that I do, I'm like, okay, could I live on an oxygen concentrator? Yeah, if it gets me to my grandbaby's wedding. What if I was in a wheelchair? Yeah, I could do that. So you have to start thinking about what are you now willing to live with, not what were you willing to live with. So when an 18-year-old fills out their paperwork, they're gonna say, I don't want to be put on a vent, ever. Most of the time, that's gonna be their mindset. What's my thought on that? If there's hope for recovery, I just don't want to live that way forever. So I'm going to give you some definite criteria. Put me on a vent, give me my feeding, give me my hydration, and if after X number of days there's not enough cognition and brain function, if I'm not showing signs of recovery, if, then yes, we can pull the plug. For me, I have 4 children, I've told you that. Not one of them will be the one to sign that piece of paper. I do not believe in doing that. Now, it doesn't mean that I haven't done it, but for me, I do not believe that you put that off on your child, because no child should ever have to deal with the fact, even if it's honoring your wish, of being the one that signs the piece of paper that ends your life. That's just my personal feeling. I've done it. I've done that for people. And I didn't want to do it to my children, because if I tell one, yes, it's you. So it's my oldest daughter. Okay, Tony, it's yours to do. What happens when one of the other kids has hope? Then who are they going to resent? Because remember, in every story, there's a villain. And I never want to villainize one of my children against the other in that way when it comes to the end of my life. So for me, I pick a neutral party. I pick someone that's in the medical field, that knows my wishes, that knows how I would want things done, and it's very detailed and specified. My children get to be my children. Consult with them, talk to them, hear their side, explain my side to them without the emotions, and then let that signature be yours. That's my personal opinion. It doesn't mean that it's not okay to have your kids, it's just the way I feel about it. Anything else?
I think you just answered a question for me.
Try.
Well,